All right, today we are on a mission to answer internet's most burning questions about smell. Let's see what the top search YouTube items and Google search trends prepared for us. First of all, I had to filter out about first 5 pages of all trends that include the word smell because those were referring to bodily odors and various discharges that probably are the best answered by men's and women's health doctors. But nevertheless, there were a few that were not that graphic. And the first, I love the most. What fragrance would go with smells like Teen Spirit? And the whole thing about Nirvana in the 90s is probably in the top 3 of my favorite songs by Nirvana. So Smells by Teen Spirit. What does it smell for me? For me, definitely Jasmine et Cigarette by Etat Libre d'Orange, which is a flowy, kind of light, slightly metallic, flowy jasmine scent, plus wet cigarette buds. That's my high school in a nutshell. And the second that is forever ingrained in my memory is Vivienne Westwood, Anglomania, which is kind of a linear, punchy but powdery rose, which is a rare combination of factors. It's both kind of in your face, at the same time it is soft, almost demure and seductive. Seductive not in a musky or animalic way, but in this boudoir makeup bag type of way, without any obvious iris or any obvious sweetness or any obvious rose. Love it, love it, love it, and I will forever probably will be searching for something of that kind. When you have your favorite theme, it's hard to limit yourself to just one specimen of it. One that I'm testing right now that I hope I'll be able to find a replacement for Anglomania for is Andy Tower, which is a Swiss niche brand. Really cool packaging, very charismatic owner. It's Une Rose de Kandahar Eau de Parfum. Julie Rose, not as powdery, but classical Andy Tower perfumes all have this a bit of a vivacious, deep, rich, glamorous base. So I am mildly hopeful that maybe that could be it, but we'll see. Next, best smelly room spray. Surprisingly hard to find. And I gotta say that most of things that I tested in Target and kind of common places where people buy room refreshers, way too synthetic and annoyingly smelling to me. Almost it would be very, very rare occasion for me to find something for the room that has that necessary ambient, subtle, interesting tone that at the same time is non-invasive. So when we're talking about the longest lasting room spray, it's a bit of a logical non sequitur, because we have a fundamental property of our nose that is a receptor adaptation. Once you infuse the space around your nose with a constant persistent smell, your nose and your brain, your whole body starts working very hard, exhausting itself, trying to remove that from your signaling pathways and kind of normalize it to nothing. And that's a very strong safety-based, survival-based adaptation that allows you to still smell something burning or smell rotting food, smell danger, smell something pleasant or ripe, yummy fruit, even in the presence of any constant agent. Therefore, when it comes to aromatizing our house, our home, I would heavily recommend you go for ways that create a dynamic smelling experience. Pretty much the whiffs. We need to create a way that we get a whiff of something, whether we're wearing a personal perfume or having something in the house. For me personally, the room sprays of all kinds and melts and candles don't work. They're very harsh, or they are not noticeable, they're very synthetic. Almost never I can find something that has that whiff dynamic property, so I can still smell it and the same time that I would enjoy the smell. So what I usually do, I just spray perfumes. There's a plenty of perfumes in my collection, for example, Hermes Eau de Mandarine Ambré, things that I thought I would love, but I couldn't quite find myself wearing. And before completely giving up, sometimes I start using perfumes as room sprays or in the bathroom in order to kind of interact with them in a different way, in a more focused and at the same relaxed way. Because when you spray something like that in the guest room or in the living room or in the bathroom, there are probably only 15 seconds that you really can smell it properly, but then it opens up vivaciously and three-dimensionally in space, giving you a very new experience and a much more dimensional way of interacting with the perfume. So I'm happy to say I was trying to get rid of Eau de Mandarine Ambré, and the more I use it as a room spray, the more I fall in love with it. Similar situation with number 1 L'Heure by Cartier, which I haven't even showed in the seasonal indulgences, but I will. I use that much, and it's mostly as a room spray. I do find that irises for me just don't work as a personal perfume unless it's iris plays a supportive role to a gourmand or to something else. Dry librarian type of, or maybe boiled carrots type of irisy perfumes just never seduce me as a personal perfume. But I love dry librarian type of iris when it fills the space in the room. And again, for me, it's more than enough to spray it on furniture, to spray it in the air, to enjoy it for a couple of minutes, and you will only encounter this scent again if you leave the room for a while and then you come back, then you might still catch a whiff. That's how smelling works. It's not only impossible, it's not desirable for you to constantly smell anything at all times, because you can also damage your neural receptors. Just like putting sugar in your mouth and keeping a cube of sugar at all times can kill your taste receptors and alter your taste of food. The same thing works with smelling receptors. We're not designed, and it's not good for us to continuously be bombarded with the same scent. So I heavily recommend that you pull out a few perfumes that you haven't used in a while and just start casually spraying them every time you have this thought of having a room spray. And believe it or not, that probably will not happen more often than 5 times in a day ever. And those beautifully designed, because perfumes smell so much better in the room than any room spray you can find on the market. It's a much more rich and nuanced experience, and you only really need it for those 5 minutes, those 5 times when you had the thought, realistically. Perfume classification. Here I say very few classifications are truly comprehensive or useful, because the world of smells is a multifactorial problem that keeps evolving. The more we encounter new molecules and new combinations of existing aroma materials, the more types of scents can be reproduced in an entirely new scents that do not necessarily resemble anything we've smelled before can be brought to life. So probably the Fragrance Wheel by Michael Edwards, where he kind of combined, labeled, and provided alternative names for existing fragrance families as they were presented in, let's say, 1980s. Since then, the modern chemistry and the modern art form of designing perfumery have stepped way beyond everything we know about fougères, shippers, gourmands, or aromatic ambers and things of that nature. But you can Google Fragrance Wheel by Michael Edwards. That will give you a few phrases to work with. The reality is that those are based on kind of like experiential knowledge of the past, of a far past. As I said, we have surpassed a lot of that knowledge a couple of decades ago, what went with what. And if you really want to learn about what scents combine with which scents, you can layer perfumes and just play with it and see how it works. Or you can take a perfume course, a perfume chemistry course, perfume making course, one that I find especially user-friendly for people with all kinds of backgrounds, is by Sam Macer. And you can watch our interview and find all the links to his course in that interview and online if you just Google him on YouTube, or search him on YouTube or Google him. So that will give you some ideas, but the truth of the matter is all fragrance classifications are kind of made up and non-scientific, and they are forever not complete. So the way that scents are made is a vast multifactorial problem. What's also curious, and if you listen to the interview with Sam Macer, the perfumer, he talks about it, that it's interesting when you just blindly start mixing things. Most of the time, the combinations that you come up with, even if you use perfume ingredients that are designed to smell good, right? Like they're not going to put sulfur or, any kind of aroma chemicals that smell of rotten flesh or boiled cabbage. They're just not going to put it there for distribution, or even for people who are independent perfume makers. Most of the mixtures will be not pleasing to our nose. So there's so many combinations of all ingredients that can yield all kinds of mixtures of emotions and associations, and yet majority of them, if mixed at random, will be no good. So this is why perfumer as a profession is a lifelong journey of mixing art and science. And again, if you want to learn more about that, you're welcome to watch the interview, and also subscribe to Sam's YouTube channel. He talks a lot about different aspects of perfume making. Closing the loop on perfume classification, I wish I had better news for you, but in a way that's what makes this field forever evolving and forever interesting, because it's not 1, 2, 3 and we're done type of industry. It's not that type of hobby. I would say it's probably hundreds, if not thousands of times more complex than classification on wines, because wines is only a small subset of smells and tastes, and scents, fragrances, perfumes, it's a sea. It's enormous, and it's also only kind of like a large lake that is part of the ocean that is scents in general. And even in that ocean, there are scents that we can perceive, and the scents that we process, but they're silent to our consciousness. So we don't feel or think anything, but we are experiencing and processing a scent, an olfaction experience. So there's so many fascinating aspects to olfaction arts and science. So it's not easy. It will never be. Anybody who pitches you a book or a downloadable PDF or any kind of 7 simple steps type of recipe is probably grossly oversimplifying and maybe potentially even misleading you in your quest to understand perfumes more. But it's always useful to have some systems, and to that I say Fragrance Wheel by Michael Edwards probably is the one that's the best established and kind of cross-shared culturally in the field and in the fragrance community. The best spicy fragrance perfume, definitely Salvador Ferragamo. It's their boutique line that not many people know about, but there's one, probably not just one, but one fragrance that is truly like the hero, the unsung hero of the whole line, which is La Comedia. This is my backup bottle, by the way. It's the most delicious, diffusive, long-lasting, filling the room and kind of dominating the space, souffle, kind of very dry, sparkly, type of peppery fragrance. There are all kinds of aromatic peppers in there. I'm finishing up my first bottle. I have it in the travel here. It's so bright, spicy, almost edible, but it's not a gourmand. It's edible in a way that there's so many different peppers that you can find here. You can find paprika, you can have Szechuan pepper, you can find pink, white, black pepper, even Bulgarian pepper, I feel. Swirls and tickles your nose. It's constantly evolving, and yet usually peppery fragrances or spicy fragrances are not that long lasting to me. That kind of puff that you get is usually in the opening notes, and it doesn't last, and then eventually you're just smelling some kind of base that has close to nothing to do with spices. The Salvador Ferragamo La Camelia is a rare exception to the rule. This fragrance is gonna stay on your clothes, it's gonna fill the room, it's very moving and diffusive, which is, to me, rare for spicy fragrances. The absolute hit, and a lot of other fragrances try to imitate that effect and don't succeed. When it comes to a more classical spicy fragrance, I would say right now I'm actually shifting toward nudes, and Pauvre Noir by Serge Lutens is their fairly new release that is based on kind of nudie musks. A little bit of a mineral accord I feel in there, just a little bit of that kind of sentimental metallic note or sort of minerality mixed with freshly cut black pepper. Opens up beautifully on my skin, and as I said in my reviews of Serge Lutens, they're like the wizard wands from the Harry Potter world. Is the wand that chooses a wizard, not the other way around. So they either choose you or they don't. Always worth getting yourself a sample, wearing it for a little bit, seeing if you have that magical chemistry with them or not. And I went through decades and decades of sampling and resampling sometimes before I found a fit with Serge Lutens. But for the class of innovative and unique blending that Serge Lutens brand does, and distinctive packaging, unapologetic stylism of how they pitch and package their products, that would be my recommendation number 2. Question: how do you make sure you smell good? All right. Well, obvious things first. I think a lot of people don't freshen up during the day. And by that I mean you can always go to a restroom and freshen up certain parts of you that potentially are not as fresh as they were in the morning after the shower. I can't say refresh your perfume, and that's like an obvious suggestion, and yet it's not going to play as nicely if you apply it over a really sweaty, exhausted, stressed out skin. So I would say always freshen up and then apply your favorite fragrance. And the best way we smell to others is about 30 minutes in after we apply the perfume. So I would heavily recommend, if you have a social event, gathering, or a meeting that you're preparing for, spray your favorite perfume, something that you love, that's something that makes you feel good, on your wrists, because if you remember, our noses are dynamic and noses of other people are dynamic as well. The most pleasurable experience of smells for us is whiffs. When you catch a whiff, and not when you're bombarded with a wall of screechy stink. Applying your favorite perfume on the body parts that move is your best bet to keep smelling your own perfume and to allow others to enjoy it without overwhelming yourself or them. So apply it to the hands. I would also say back of your head, or maybe if you have long hair, your hair. I would even say, I dare say, your knees. If you're going to be sitting down, that's also a good place. I would definitely get yourself a few decant bottles and decant your favorite perfumes. Put those travel sprays, those decants, in every purse, in every place you can think of, in your pockets, in your car, anywhere you can think of. And 30 minutes before a given meeting, spray a little bit on the moving parts of your body. I heavily recommend you don't spray anything near your nose, because you're gonna overwhelm your nose and then the scent will go to zero, while to the other person it might be too much. So this space should be free of any constant loud stimulus. But extremities of our body, in our backs, anything that moves is a good place. Odor, smell from underarms. That's the only one I'm picking up from the most searched items about smell, because that's pretty much represents a varieties of the first 5 pages of searches on YouTube and on Google. Apparently there are a lot of hygienic and health problems that people are experiencing that cause their body parts to smell. But I find that, underarms, I feel like it's a safe enough topic that's not too invasive. And a lot of people do struggle with that. Again, I dare say, if we look into what produces the smell, right? Let's look to the root of the problem. What produces the smell? First of all, some people have hyperactive glands, so their body disproportionately produces sweat. But that's not necessarily what stinks. Sweat has a smelling properties by itself, but what really makes it much, much worse is the interaction of this liquid that has smelling properties with the microbiome, all of the microorganisms and bacteria and microbes that live in synergy with us. In many ways, they protect them from many bad things. It's a symbiotic, beneficial relationship that we have with our microbiome. However, and it seems to be partly genetic and definitely epigenetic, that our microbiome depends on who our parents are and who are we hanging around with. It also partially, but much less, depends on what we eat. So certain strains of bacteria, when they start eating the liquid that the glands produced, eating the sweat, they produce the stink. And there's certain types of colonies of bacteria that some people have, and probably no surprise to many of you, probably know those stories and heard of them. Oh, their whole family is, stinky. It's those bacterial strains that you might have inherited from your parents or maybe from your significant other, because we exchange microbiome with our pets and with the people that we live with and the people that we touch all the time. So it is possible to actually get the stink off another person if those bacterial strains find a welcoming place on our skin with all the other microbiome and the things that are the oils and the liquids that our body produces. So that is the problem. So what can help? First of all, you need to clean up. There's no way around it. And often you don't need necessarily to use any stringent soaps. You just need to remove that layer that's already been stinking, right? That's already that set, eaten by bacteria sweat. So just removing the excess. It's the first step. Always don't apply anything fragrant or anything else at all on what's already been going on. Even just splashing with water or taking a paper towel or any kind of wipe can help. If you can kind of do it clean, as I said, not necessarily any harsh soaps are required. Removing that, getting your surfaces of underarms as clean as possible. Then I would dare say applying some salt. So you want to kill the bacteria that are the producers of that thing. There are salt deodorant sticks that I know some people use with great success. They will not reduce the production of sweat, but they rupture the cellular membranes because the salt level it breaks down the cellular membranes of bacteria's cell walls and they die. So applying salt sticks, usually they're non-interactive, so you can apply your favorite deodorant and a salt stick. So that will most likely eliminate a huge part of what stinks, but you will still experience wetness because that's just a production of your body. And to kind of complete the picture, I would recommend applying a scent, but something that has a bit of this lemony or minty flavor. I would not recommend fruits or gourmands. Contrary to popular opinion, I don't think fruits work very well with our sweat. It's actually the cliche that makes people not like fruits because they almost associate them with BO smell. I find that certain lemony green scents, they kind of align better with fresh sweat. Not that I would ever want to recommend putting one on top of the other, but if we are, to distract our noses from any remaining odor, I would probably go with that. Interesting question, even though it sounds so simple. Why is smelling good important? I think first and foremost, when we are placing the question in that modality, probably we're talking about social adaptivity, how we fit with other people, rather than potentially why is it important to smell your food, which is pure safety. We mostly detect rotten or poisoned food by smell, not by taste. So our ability to smell is very important for our survival in that respect. That's our ability to detect smells. Why is it important to emit a pleasant smell? I think it's mostly a social thing. There is at least one genetic factor of how we're designed and how olfaction works. The olfaction as a sense is the closest sense to our limbic system and hippocampus. So it's nearly direct shot what we smell, direct shot to what we to memory centers and to subconscious. This is fight or flight response and arousal, like ability, kind of these feelings, the area of feelings that before your consciousness wakes up and start rationalizing anything or reasoning about anything. So a lot of our social likability is based on subconscious. And one thing that this olfaction is known for, there's predominantly only one scenario when we can persistently experience a smell. It's when it's something unpleasant. Call it evolutionary biology, survivalism, whatever that is. Pleasant smells we neutralize to zero very quickly. There's a lot of processes and things that happen to make it so. You smell something pleasant for a little bit, and even if it's still there, your nose, your brain will neutralize it to zero. But if it's something unpleasant, if it's something disturbing, if it's something that in any way is associated with harm or danger, this smell experience of unpleasant smell can intensify to the point that it will change your mood, you will become aggressive, or you will leave the room, fight or flight. So you definitely don't evoke that response in people, right? At the very least, you want them to want to be around you. And I see a lot of men, mostly men, though I actually met a few women who were convinced that their natural musk was attracting mates, while it was rather hard to be around them. It is true that our secretions contain mating information in them. It's not like it's untrue. The problem is that at the same time, we dislike other people's bodily smells, predominantly most of the time. For women, there's a short window when they smell men's BO and can be in any way interested. And for men, situation can be a little bit more complex. It's not that well known, and the studies that's been done with making people smell opposite sex BO and other bodily discharges are kind of a mixed bag, really. People could feel aroused, but they were still irritated by unpleasantness of what they were experiencing. So usually still not a good idea, even if your natural musk is your tool, is your weapon to attract the most suitable mate for yourself. I would still say maybe just clean body is still better than the soiled underarms. Another factor, to be liked by a person, if it's a specific person, you would need to research their olfactory history. There are very few things that are universally appealing or repulsive. Sulfur is universally repulsive, all kinds of rotting type of aroma chemicals, the one that create this association with rotting food, rotting flesh, with decaying disease. And a few floral plus vanilla aroma chemicals that are universally pleasant. Almost everything else that you can think of is subjective. It has to fit what that particular person associated with good, or at least doesn't have bad, negative emotional associations with. Somebody will smell Estee Lauder or Chanel No. 5 and will think of their beloved grandma, and somebody will think of a teacher from a school that they absolutely hated, who made their life hell. And again, even if it's your loving grandma, do you really want to give that emotional association on your fourth date? It's up to you, We all have our own kinks, I guess, but it's something to take into account. It's very subjective. The smell of a rose is not a guarantee. The smell of jasmine, something edible, said like vanilla is usually by everyone considered to be pleasant, but it's also very generic, so it's not really a way to stand out. So creating a subliminal positive emotional field is a good thing for you socially. Otherwise, if we're not talking about social aspect, here is an uncomfortable truth. All of the pleasantness and cleanliness of smellscapes around us is a very new phenomenon. As humans, as animals, we were never really surrounded by that many pleasant smells. In that sense, it's almost more surprising that we continuously seek them. So both things are true. We're not exactly pleasantly smelling animals, even to each other. Even the best suited mates like each other's BO only on certain occasions, which is not frequent. And we, as humans, constantly seek pleasant smells. It's a bit of a controversy, but that's the way it is. That's what we know so far. So we seek pleasantness of smells, and we're not really designed to be smelling good or be surrounded by nice smells either. So outside of the social context, no, I would say it's fair to say you don't have to smell good. You don't owe it to anyone. And maybe to a certain degree, it can be a conscious barrier if you're, let's say, if you're working out or you're pushing yourself physically or mentally, focusing on any other aspects of your appearance or how you smell when you're single-mindedly trying to hyper-focus on some exerting task might be a distraction. So maybe it's even good to go completely bare in certain life situations. So I think socially, we covered our bases. Outside of that aspect, no, you don't have to. I don't see a reason why should we? Long-lasting, mild perfume. I love this logical non sequiturs. I thought I would have nothing to say, and yet I found one. I can't believe, but I did. There is something happening now, a revolution in nude perfumes that have this dynamic whiff quality that they leave and come back. And an extraordinary, affordable, and widely available example of that is a fairly recent release by Chloe. I got myself already a backup. Chloe Rose Naturelle Intense. That's my particular choice. I prefer the intense version, but I hear the Chloe Rose Naturelle is just as delightful. There's something special about this one. The Rose Naturelle Intense is this slightly flowery, I'm talking like baking flour, slightly flowery baking powder type of soft souffle rose that lasts forever. It's the longest lasting nudie type of perfume that would be like slightly powdery, slightly baked, soft, well-rounded rose that just keeps going. Nothing stops it. If you put it on your clothes, you're done until you wash it, and maybe even after that you'll still catch a whiff. I don't know how they managed to make a formula that has this semi introverted quality and yes, just unbelievable longevity. So it's not screechy, it's not screaming, it's not piercing, and yet it lasts forever. I mean, wow. Compliments to the chef. So I do have one for you. Despite me not quite believing in the mild, long-lasting perfume as a thing, here is one. I managed to find one. All right, next internet's burning question. How many sprays of perfume should I wear? Heavily depends if you're gonna be inside or outside, alone or with other people, and on the perfume. Secondary factors are how well do you smell? Like, do you have a developed sense of smell, or you hardly register anything? But if it's a social environment, I dare say other people's experience is as important as yours, because otherwise they have to leave the room or at least step away from you considerably in order to remain their sanity and not to get a headache. If we remove the social aspects, it's mostly up to you, like nobody's business. One thing I say, if you over apply consistently, and if you use the same perfume, and if you over apply it consistently, and you like one of those seekers of beast mode, long lasting, loudest perfume in the room that I can smell 12 hours after, this is kind of like a mortally obese person who is seeking a greasy fast food meal that is good for them losing weight and improving their nutrition value. It's non sequitur. One, it's not common, but it can happen, so I have to say it. Not most people are not that far gone, but if you feel like you're already going above 10 sprays and it's your intense elixir something version, and you still don't feel it after 15 minutes, you're overdosed. Constant overdose of the same stimulus can lead to your receptors dying. There is some plasticity. They can regenerate with a smelling diet and rigorous training. It is possible, but not a given. However, I wouldn't call it like the most dangerous part of it. I think the most dangerous part is just alienating people around you, and people most likely will not tell us if we stink, especially of a perfume. Like it's just something people rarely don't say anything about, but you will feel the consequences in your social interactions with people when people don't want to stand around you. They don't want to be around you. They have an unpleasant experience when they're sharing space. So I think that's actually is much more dangerous than the severe case of burning your receptors down. So I'll say, if it's something light, like one of my favorite socializing scents is Dangerous Complicity by Totally Bergeron. It's this rather uncertain coconut rum plus some uncertain florals that just has this little bit of flirtatious qualities. It's very, what is it? Is it there? Is it not there? But what I like about it, that it gives whiffs of coconut rum every once in a while if applied on clothes or on extremities, like arms and legs or hair. And it's nice, right? It's nice. It's universally nice. People tend to like nice and simple. And with that, I can easily apply 10 sprays and I'll be fine. It's just not that kind of perfume that you can really easily overdo. You would have to drench yourself in it. And there are fragrances like, what would be a good example? Well, probably this. This is Mentha Religiosa by Rue & Rue. This house has some powerful blends, mind you. Not very well known, but like in the niche perfume community, some people know this is beast mode. A lot of their fragrances are. So this is, I think it's like fougere like. So it's like green, thick leaves, maybe even, I wouldn't say piney, but like it has this kind of like green, substantially verdant presence plus a mint oil. It doesn't feel like light mint in the mountains, you know. It's not this kind of fresh cold air. It's more hardier. It's lower to the ground. It's oilier. It's like a spearmint oil in a way, plus all this greenness and fougere like substantive base. If I apply more than 3, like 4, I start just losing ability to breathe. So it really depends on the perfume. And again, if you're not sure, I find it's always safe to first go with your hands, check with yourself, get yourself a decant, check with yourself or maybe with somebody else near you in like 15 to 20 minutes, and then reapply some more. Next internet's burning question: best niche florals nobody talks about. Oh my god, so many wonderful niche brands that make exquisite, complex florals and nobody talks about it. It's tragic. The one that is faithfully represented in my collection would be Atelier Bloem. I even have a brand review for you on the channel so you can check it out. Half Moon Extraordinary Tulip. It's watercolor botanical paintings. Delightful, sophisticated, unobtrusive, but forever intriguing to study. This is one of these unsung niche floral perfume brands that just does exquisite job, exquisite, on par with L'Artisan Parfumeur, Old Penhaligon's, and some of those floral connoisseurs. Really, really good stuff. Highly recommend you check it out. Next burning question: how to get compliments on my fragrance? Interesting way to put it. Not that I want to go too deep into this world of insecurity of why does anybody need to be complimented on their fragrance, but let's say that's the goal. Let's say you just got your favorite perfume, and like for me the most socializable and the perfume that just gets compliments automatically without me trying too hard is Tardis by Carner Barcelona, because it is a light, very souffle-like almondy floral. I can't say that it's an almond cookie because that's usually much more edible, sweeter, gourmandier kind of stuff. This, think about it, this is like a souffle. It's just like this little cloud in the air of a little bit of like a puff of sugar powder with a little bit of like a trace of almonds and maybe some florals, hard to tell. So that's what it is. It's diffusive, it's light, it's inviting, and it's fairly unique. If you think about Flower Bomb or anything else that's sweet and powdery and floral that is mainstream, they are way too nauseatingly strong and screechy, and people at this point are used to them and they're just not reacting to them at all. So I find that TARDIS is just hits that sweet spot between originality, lightness. As I said, socially it's very important not to overwhelm people with our favorite fragrances. Otherwise, they will dislike you rather than like you. So that just hits the sweet spot. So sometimes it's the fragrance that does the work for you. That said, it's not always pleasant, that attention. I don't know why would people just seek it. You might get it from people you're not interested in, people who you don't want to touch you, people you don't want to talk to. So it's not necessarily, a good thing to be such a magnet for compliments on your fragrance. It often can go into very seedy and rather shallow place. That said, if that's the goal, and you're wearing your favorite perfume, and nobody's complimenting on it, I dare say, smile and say, I got this perfume that I just fell in love with, but I wonder if anybody can detect it. And again, as I said, often it helps to put perfume on your hands because it creates a dynamic experience where people can catch whiffs of it, and you can catch whiffs of it, and that's how we keep it going instead of it being neutralized by receptor adaptation to zero. And you can just offer your hands like, can you smell it on me? Because I'm so in love, but I just wonder, can anybody smell my perfume, or do people even like it? Because I am so in love. And you offer, and people can potentially take your hand, take a whiff, and they say if they smell it and what it smells like to them. It's a sure way to fish for compliments on your perfume. I don't know almost a single person who would honestly say they don't like somebody's perfume. So I think it's pretty much like a social blackmail. If you really, if anybody's out there who is putting this search in Google and YouTube with all of the army of queens and kings who just want to blackmail the surrounding into complimenting their perfumes, people, if you ask, they will say something nice, even if they don't like it. Will you know the truth this way? No, you won't. But you can fish for some compliments that way. It has been done successfully. Best summer perfumes 2024. Made a video, watch it on my channel. That's about the fruits. I think fruits work. It's a wonderful cultural association and just historical association that we have between smells and seasons. Fruits are perfect for summer. It's just, even if you're having the saddest, the coldest, or the hottest, or the most disappointing, or the busiest summer of your life, a really good ripe peach, or mango, or maracuya, or juicy apple can still support us through that season in life when summer is not quite a summer. So I'll recommend you to watch that and get some of that. And just to add one more bonus recommendation, if you are in the heat of summer, like for me in Florida and a lot of people in the south of the states, or maybe you're traveling for vacation and you know it's gonna be scorching heat, be it dry or wet, you have to pick up a fragrance that is not going to completely fall apart. Or if it does, that it just kind of fades apart instead of collapsing on your skin and you just reeking of something really unpleasant plus sweat. One of the powerful, fruity, long-lasting, fairly sturdy, I would say, perfumes that I would recommend to men and women. Actually, it has this beautiful solid quality to it, even though it's a little bit flirtatious, is Fig Ecstasy by Mancera, or I guess in French Mancera, because this is not your usual milky fig, which is also a delightful experience, but fruity perfumes can sometimes mix badly with the sweat. So if you're looking for something that has a bit of teeth that can grab on your skin without morphing into something unpleasant, it's like a purse, like a thick cow leather purse that is scented with figs. It has this sober, aromatic fougere type of quality, and it's like third, third, third. Fig is a third. There's a little bit of leaves, a little bit of softness of the fruit. There's like a hint of vanilla there somewhere, or vanilla milk, but only a hint. And there is this put together, like business first type of sober fougere component that doesn't smell like, you know, male locker room or a typical male fragrance. It doesn't. It just gives it a little bit more of a solid ground, like a sturdy desk made of a mahogany wood. So this is a very well balanced unisex fig aromatic perfume that stays put even in the most disgustingly, like, gates of hell opening heat of Florida. I always find solace in this one. All right, I hope you enjoyed this installment of the perfume myth busting and hot takes on internet's most searched questions about smell. If you have any of your questions or your own insights and recommendations, please leave them in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's very important for the development of this channel, and just, you know, for my own sad and lonely heart, to every once in a while to know that you guys out there are still waiting for the next video. So subscribe, give it a like, leave a comment. I'll be waiting for you. See you in the next one.